You jolt awake at 3 in the morning, heart hammering against your rib cage. That terrible sensation of falling through empty space, still gripping every muscle in your body. Your hands clutch the sheets, searching for something solid, something real, because for those few seconds between sleep and waking, you were absolutely certain you were plummeting into an abyss with no bottom. This is not random. This is not your brain misfiring or too much caffeine before bed. Jung discovered that this specific dream, this particular terror, reveals something catastrophic happening in your psyche right now, in this very moment of your waking life. Most people dismiss falling dreams as stress or anxiety, perhaps something they ate, maybe a sign they need a vacation. They treat it like static on a radio, meaningless noise to be ignored. But Jung knew better. He spent decades documenting what these dreams actually mean, and what he found should terrify you into paying attention. When you dream of falling, your ego is losing its grip on the unconscious. The ground beneath your psychological feet is giving way, and this dream is your psyche screaming that you are avoiding something critical, something that cannot be avoided much longer without consequences. Now, Freud looked at falling dreams through his particular lens. He saw them as repressed sexual anxieties, a loss of control linked to forbidden desires or performance fears. In his framework, the falling sensation represented wish fulfillment gone wrong, the body expressing what the conscious mind refused to acknowledge about its sexual nature. And while Freud's interpretation held truth for some patients, it also kept them trapped, endlessly excavating their past for sexual traumas, while the present crisis continued to unfold, unaddressed and unresolved. Jung expanded beyond Freud's sexual framework because he understood something more fundamental about psychic energy. The libido is not merely sexual energy, it is total psychic energy, the life force that animates your entire being. And falling dreams, Jung discovered, are compensatory mechanisms from the unconscious. Your psyche operates like a self-regulating system, constantly attempting to balance what has become dangerously out of alignment. When you dream of falling, something in your conscious attitude has become so one-sided, so disconnected from the deeper wisdom of the unconscious, that your entire psychological structure is beginning to collapse. The fall represents your ego disconnecting from the unconscious foundation that supports it. You are regressing into childish patterns to escape current challenges, retreating into old comfortable ways of being, rather than facing what stands before you now. This is not about childhood trauma, though that may exist. This is about what you are avoiding today, this week, this month. The dream is a warning system, your psyche's emergency broadcast that you are losing your psychological foundation while you sleep. Jung observed 3 fatal patterns in patients experiencing recurring falling dreams. The first pattern involves refusing to face a major life decision. You know the choice that needs to be made. It sits in your awareness like a stone in your shoe. But you keep walking, keep pretending you can delay indefinitely. The second pattern emerges when you suppress parts of yourself that desperately need integration. Qualities, desires, truths about who you are that you have deemed unacceptable, pushed down into the darkness where they grow in power and autonomy. The third pattern appears when you maintain false control while your psychic structure crumbles beneath the surface. You present competence and stability to the world, while internally, the architecture of your personality fractures along invisible fault lines. Jung treated a patient once, a woman experiencing recurring falling dreams. She was intelligent, psychologically sophisticated, seemed stable in every observable way. The dreams intensified as she avoided confronting her shadow material, those aspects of herself she found most disturbing and unacceptable. She dismissed them as stress, kept pushing forward with her conscious agenda, maintained her routines and responsibilities. Within weeks, the psychological ground gave way in her waking life. What the dream had been warning about, what her unconscious had been desperately trying to communicate, manifested as a complete breakdown of the personality structure she had worked so hard to maintain. The fall she refused to acknowledge in sleep became the fall she could not escape while awake. You see, most people at this point make a catastrophic error. They witness the falling dream, they feel the terror grip their chest at 3 in the morning, and they immediately seek to eliminate it. They research sleep hygiene techniques, adjust their bedroom temperature, remove screens before bedtime, perhaps consult a physician about medication. Others turn to meditation apps, breathing exercises, anything to make the dreams stop. But Jung discovered something that will disturb you. These approaches do not solve the problem. They make it worse. Far worse. When you try to suppress the falling dream through external interventions, you are doing precisely what created the dream in the first place. You are avoiding. You are running from the message your unconscious is screaming at you. The dream is not a malfunction to be corrected. It is not a symptom to be medicated away. It is a communication, an urgent transmission from the deepest parts of your psyche, and when you silence it without listening, you sever the very connection that keeps your personality intact. Jung called this the compensatory function of dreams. Listen carefully, because this concept will change how you understand your own mind forever. Your conscious ego, the part of you that thinks, plans, makes decisions, naturally develops one-sided attitudes. You become too rational, neglecting emotion, too controlled, suppressing spontaneity, too focused on external achievement, abandoning inner development. This one-sidedness is inevitable. It is how the conscious mind operates. But your psyche as a whole cannot tolerate extreme imbalance. The unconscious, that vast reservoir of everything you are, but do not know you are, steps in to restore equilibrium. The falling dream is your unconscious compensating for a dangerous imbalance in your conscious attitude. When you dream of falling, your psyche is correcting something. The sensation of losing control in the dream reflects what your ego refuses to acknowledge during waking hours. You believe you have everything under control. You maintain your schedule, your responsibilities, your carefully constructed life. But underneath, the psychic foundation is crumbling, and your unconscious knows it. The fall in the dream shows you what your ego cannot see in daylight. It is your psyche's emergency intervention before complete breakdown occurs. This is why the dream feels so visceral, so terrifying. It is not merely symbolic, it is your entire being trying to wake you up to a truth you are desperately avoiding. And here is what Jung observed, that most people never grasp. The intensity of the falling dream corresponds directly to the severity of the imbalance. The more violently you fall, the more urgent the message. The more frequently the dream recurs, the more critical the situation has become. Now, Jung developed a specific method for addressing this. But you must understand something crucial first. This is not a quick fix. This is not a 5-step program you complete over a weekend. Integration of unconscious material requires time, preparation, and most importantly, psychological readiness. Jung documented what happens when people rush this process, and the results were devastating. The first phase requires brutal honesty. You must identify what present challenge you are avoiding. Not what happened in your childhood, not what your parents did wrong. What are you running from right now, today, in your current life? Is there a decision you know you need to make, but keep postponing? Is there a relationship that has become toxic, but you lack the courage to address? Is there a career path you know is wrong for you, but you continue because it feels safe? The falling dream emerges when you refuse to confront what needs confronting. Phase 2 demands that you recognize the regression pattern. When faced with difficult present challenges, the psyche often retreats into childish coping mechanisms. You avoid conflict like a child hiding from an angry parent. You seek approval like a child desperate for validation. You pretend problems do not exist like a child covering their eyes. Jung understood that this regression, this falling back into immature patterns, creates the sensation of falling in the dream world. You are literally falling backward into earlier developmental stages instead of moving forward into mature engagement with reality. The third phase is where most people fail. You must consciously engage with the unconscious material. This does not mean thinking about it. This does not mean understanding it intellectually. It means allowing the unconscious wisdom to surface and inform your conscious decisions. You sit with the discomfort. You feel the fear the dream is showing you. You acknowledge the loss of control instead of fighting against it. This is active imagination, the technique Jung himself used during his most dangerous psychological period. But here is where it becomes treacherous. Phase 4, the restoration of connection between ego and unconscious, cannot be forced. You cannot will integration to happen. You can only create the conditions for it. You face the challenge you have been avoiding. You make the decision you have been postponing. You speak the truth you have been suppressing. And as you do this in waking life, as you stop running from present reality, the falling dream begins to shift. Jung documented something extraordinary in patients who properly completed this process. The dream itself transformed. The sensation of falling out of control gradually became a controlled descent, then floating. Then, in some cases, actual flight. This was not metaphorical language. The dream content literally changed. Patients reported that instead of jolting awake in terror, they found themselves gliding, moving through space with intention and direction. This transformation signaled successful reconnection between conscious and unconscious minds. The anxiety dissolves, but not because you suppressed it or medicated it away. It dissolves because you addressed the actual psychic imbalance that created it. Your conscious and unconscious minds realign. The compensatory mechanism is no longer needed. The falling dream disappears because the message has been received and acted upon. Drop a comment right now if you have experienced this dream, because what I am about to tell you next will explain why it keeps returning.